The blue light of my laptop screen is the only thing cutting through the dark of my studio apartment at 11:47 at night. I've been staring at the same column of numbers for the past 40 minutes, trying to finish the quarterly projections my supervisor needs by 8 a.m. My neck aches, my eyes burn. The half-eaten bowl of instant noodles next to my keyboard went cold an hour ago. This is Tuesday. Tuesday looks like this every week. My phone buzzes against the desk. My younger brother's name lights up the screen, and despite everything, I feel that familiar warmth. He's probably texting about coming home for the weekend, or maybe asking if I caught that show he recommended last month. I pick it up without thinking. It's not a text. It's a voice memo. 23 seconds long. He must have hit record by accident, then sent it before he noticed. I almost delete it. Instead, I press play. The first thing I hear is my mother laughing. Not her polite laugh, the one she uses when neighbors stop by, but the real one, loose and unguarded. Then my brother's voice and my aunt's, all of them talking over each other in that comfortable, easy way that only happens when no one thinks they're being listened to. Then I hear my name. She actually called to ask if we needed anything before she transfers this month. My brother's voice amused. Like we're doing her a favor by taking it. More laughter. She's never going to stop. My aunt this time, you know why, because she needs us to need her, makes her feel important. As long as the money clears, I don't care what makes her feel important, my mother says. I sit very still. The apartment hum of the refrigerator, the distant traffic 4 floors below, all of it disappears. I replay the 23 seconds. Then a third time. The noodles are still cold, the spreadsheet is still open. Nothing has changed, and everything has changed. I set the phone down like it's something that might bite me. I think about the transfer I made 6 days ago, $1,100, sent without a second thought because my mother mentioned the water heater acting up and my brother said his car registration was due. I'd been eating lunch at my desk all week to afford it without touching my credit card. I open my calculator app, not for the projections, for something else. I start from the beginning. My father died when I was 22 and my brother was 19 and we thought we were going to be okay. Dad had a small life insurance policy, enough to cover the mortgage on the house for a year if my mother was careful. My aunt moved in to help. I had just started my first real job, entry level at a logistics company, $41,000 a year before taxes. I told my mother I would help with whatever she needed. I meant it. I was proud to mean it. That was 6 years ago. I never stopped helping. I just stopped noticing how much. The calculator doesn't lie. Over 6 years, adding up what I can remember and what I can find in my bank history, rent contributions when my mother said she was behind, my brother's tuition gap his sophomore year when financial aid fell short, my aunt's emergency dental work, the car insurance I'd been splitting with my brother for 3 years because he said he couldn't swing the full premium, the groceries I sent through Instacart every other week so my mother doesn't have to shop. $91,400. Give or take what I can't fully reconstruct. I've spent 6 years eating instant noodles in a studio apartment and telling myself it's temporary. Temporary while I help them stabilize. Temporary while my brother finishes school. Temporary while my mother gets back on her feet. I have postponed every major decision of my own adult life around the word temporary, and the only thing that actually turned out to be temporary was my ability to pretend I didn't see what was happening. I close the calculator. I open a new document and type 2 words at the top. Exit strategy. I stare at them for a long time. Then I start writing. I don't call anyone for 4 days. I go to work. I come home. I eat actual food I cooked, sitting at my desk looking at documents I've been building since that voice memo dropped into my phone like a stone into still water. My mother calls on Thursday. I let it go to voicemail. She doesn't leave one. My brother texts on Friday asking if I'm okay. I say yes, just slammed with a project. My aunt sends a photo of a plant she bought, no context. I double tap it. I am calm in a way I don't fully trust yet. On Saturday, I go through 6 years of bank statements. Not the rough math they did at midnight, but the real accounting, transaction by transaction. I build a spreadsheet with columns: date, amount, stated reason, actual likely reason. The third column takes shape slowly, and it's humbling how obvious the pattern becomes once you decide to see it. The emergencies cluster around my bonus months. My mother has known my bonus schedule for years because I told her, proudly, the first time I got one. Now I track how many of her crises arrive in March and September, and the answer is most of them. My brother's car always needs something in the weeks right after I mention planning a trip. I've canceled 2 vacations, one to New Orleans, one to a friend's wedding in Portugal, because something came up at home that couldn't wait. My brother drove a car with a working engine to a music festival the weekend after I sent money for what he said was a failing transmission. I know this because his college roommate posted photos. I've never looked at my brother's social media before because it felt intrusive. What I was actually doing was protecting myself from information I wasn't ready to have. I look at it now. I look at all of it. My mother's profile is public. She posts often. There are photos from a birthday dinner in December at a restaurant I've never been to. One that I recognize because a coworker celebrated her engagement there last year and mentioned the tasting menu was over $100 a person. My mother posted 4 photos from that dinner with the caption, "So grateful for family." That was 11 days after she called me crying about a heating bill she couldn't cover alone. I paid the heating bill. I didn't get an invitation to the dinner. My aunt's most recent posts include a weekend trip to a lake house 2 hours from home, a new sectional sofa she's clearly proud of, and a photo of my brother laughing on that same sofa with the caption, "Love this kid." My aunt told me 3 months ago that she was thinking about going back to work because things were getting tight. I keep building the spreadsheet. I keep my face very neutral. On Sunday, my mother calls again. This time I answer, "Sweetheart, we haven't heard from you all week. Everything okay?" Her voice is warm in that particular way it gets when she's measuring me. I've heard it my whole life and never identified it before. Now I hear it the way you suddenly notice a smell you've always been walking past. I've been swamped, I say. Work stuff. You know how it gets. Of course, of course. A small pause. Listen. I wanted to catch you before the week gets away from both of us. The landlord let us know the rent is going up starting next month. $220. I have been waiting for something like this. I hold my face still even though no one can see me. Oh no, I say. How much notice did he give you? Just a letter this week, very little warning. You know how landlords are. Another pause, this one more deliberate. I hate to even bring it up when you're already so busy, but I was hoping maybe we could figure something out. My aunt is in the background. I can hear the television. Let me look at my budget this week, I say. I'll get back to you. She wasn't expecting that. There's a brief recalibration. Of course, honey. No rush. Whenever you get a chance. After I hang up, I sit on the edge of my bed for a minute. Then I photograph the letter I requested from the property management company online 3 days ago when I found the landlord's name on a rental listing and looked up the property records. The actual rent on my mother's house is $840 a month. It has not increased. The letter confirms this. The $220 gap between what they pay and what they've been telling me they pay for the past 2.5 years is not a rounding error. I do the math. It is just over $7,000. I save the document. The dinner is the following Friday. My mother suggests it. She frames it as quality time, as missing me, as wanting to catch up over a home-cooked meal, and every word of it lands differently now, like hearing a song after you've learned what it's actually about. I dress carefully. Not in my work clothes, not in the nice things I rarely wear, but in something deliberately ordinary. Jeans. A sweater I've had for 4 years that's starting to pill at the cuffs. I drive my car with a faded bumper I keep meaning to get fixed. The house is warm when I walk in. My mother hugs me at the door, and she smells like the same lotion she's used my whole life. And for a moment, just for a second, I feel the old pull of it. The reflex to soften. The instinct to find a way to believe I'm wrong about all of it. Then my aunt comes around the corner wearing a cashmere cardigan I've never seen, and my mother says, "Oh, I found it on sale before I even ask," which means she's rehearsed for this, which means she knows what I might notice. I notice everything. My brother arrives 20 minutes late, which he's always done, and drops into the couch with his shoes still on, which he's also always done, and for a strange moment I see all 3 of them clearly, simultaneously, as people who have been very comfortable for a very long time. Not struggling, not surviving. comfortable in the specific way that people are when they've arranged their lives so that the difficult parts are handled by someone else. Dinner is my mother's pot roast. She knows it's my favorite. The table is set nicely. There are candles. "I'm so glad you're here," she says, and I think she actually means it. I think I have always been most welcome when I am in the room and can be asked for something directly. Remote kindness is harder to extract from. We talk about small things through most of dinner. My aunt's plant, my brother's job search, which has been ongoing since he graduated 14 months ago. When I ask how it's going, he says it's tough out there and changes the subject. When my mother clears the first round of plates, the shift happens. I recognize it now, the slight change in posture, the glance between her and my aunt. "I've been thinking more about the rent situation," she says, settling back into her chair. "I really don't see how we manage the increase without some help." My brother looks at the table. My aunt looks at me. "I actually looked into it," I say. My voice is easy, conversational. "I found the property listing online. I even found the landlord's contact. The rent hasn't changed." The table goes very quiet. "It can be hard to find accurate listings," my mother says. "Things online aren't always current." I reach into my bag and set the letter on the table. The one from the property management company. The one showing the current rent, the lease terms, the last adjustment date, which was 3 years ago. My mother looks at it. My brother looks at the window. My aunt picks up her water glass. "I've also been looking at some other things," I say. I place my phone on the table, voice memo app open, and I press play. She actually called to ask if we needed anything before she transfers this month. Like we're doing her a favor by taking it. She's never going to stop. You know why? Because she needs us to need her. Makes her feel important. As long as the money clears, I don't care what makes her feel important. 23 seconds. The room holds them for much longer. "That was an accident," my brother says, and what he means is "I didn't mean for you to hear that," which is not the same thing as "I didn't mean it." "I know it was," I say. "That's why I believe it." My mother's face has gone through several expressions in quick succession and landed on something I'd call injured dignity, the look of someone who expected to control this conversation and hasn't. "You've been recording us." Going through our private, "I found a public rental listing," I say. "I looked at public social media. And my brother sent me a voice memo he didn't intend to send. I haven't done anything you haven't been doing to me for years, with one difference." I pick up the phone. "I'm telling you about it." I set the spreadsheet in front of her. Not the full version, just the summary page. The total at the bottom outlined in a simple box. $91,400, I say. "That's my best estimate over 6 years, not counting what I can't track. That's what I sent to this household since Dad died, while I've been in his studio apartment. While I haven't taken a real vacation. While I've been eating lunch at my desk and turning down opportunities because I was always calculating what I had left to give." My aunt says, "We're family." "I know," I say. "I've been acting like it." My brother looks at me for the first time since the voice memo played. He looks younger than he is, which he always has, which I think we all allowed because it was easier. "So what, you're just done?" "That's it." "I'm done with the financial support," I say. "What else we are to each other is something you'll have to think about." I put the spreadsheet back in my bag. I stand up. My legs feel steadier than I expected. "The rent that you actually pay," I say, looking at my mother, "is $840 a month." I've confirmed that. I'll consider any future request when I've had time to think clearly and only if it comes with documentation, medical bills, utility statements, whatever it is. I'm not closing a door permanently. I'm just requiring honesty to open it. My mother says my name in that particular way, the one that used to stop me mid-sentence since I was 7 years old. I pick up my bag. "I love you," I say. And I think this is still true, in some complicated, bruised way that I haven't finished understanding, but I've been funding a version of this family that only exists so you don't have to be uncomfortable. I can't do that anymore. I hug her. She is stiff and then not stiff. My brother doesn't get up. My aunt says something I don't catch on my way to the door. Outside the air is cold and smells like early spring, that specific scent of thawed ground and car exhaust and something green trying to come back. I sit in my car for a moment without starting it. My hands are in my lap. I am not crying, which surprises me a little. I start the car and I drive home. The calls begin the next morning. My mother, twice before 8 a.m. My aunt at 9. My brother sends 3 texts in the span of an hour, ranging from "we need to talk" to "that was really unfair" to, eventually, "I'm sorry. I mean it. Can we please talk?" I read them all. I don't respond to any of them that day. I had already called my bank 2 days earlier. I walked through the account review with a rep named George who was very patient while I changed my login credentials, flagged my account for additional verification, and asked for a full transaction history going back 6 years. George mentioned, almost as a side note, that there had been an attempt to add a secondary authorized user to my savings account 8 months ago, submitted online and rejected because it hadn't been completed through the right channel. The request had used my mother's contact information. I write this down in a separate document I'm keeping now, not out of anger but out of clarity. The same way I'd document any project I needed to understand fully before closing it out. I remove them from the family plan I've been paying for 3 years. I call the insurance company and update my policies. I go through every subscription tied to a shared account and methodically remove access. Not in a rush, not in anger, but carefully, the way you pack up a workspace when you're leaving a job you've held for a long time. Each thing I remove feels like setting down something heavy that I didn't realize I was carrying. My coworker Rebecca, who went through something similar with her in-laws 2 years ago, meets me for coffee on Wednesday. I show her the spreadsheet. She doesn't flinch. She says, "You already know it wasn't about not having enough money. It was about what saying no would have meant." She's right. I've been funding their lifestyle because the alternative was admitting that the people I was doing it for didn't see me the way I needed to believe they did. She also says, "Give yourself time to be angry before you try to figure out if there's anything left to salvage." That's also right. I am angry. I'm letting myself be angry, quietly and thoroughly, in the privacy of my own apartment that I have always paid for entirely by myself and that has never felt more like mine than it does right now. 3 weeks after the dinner, my brother asks if we can meet. "Not at my mother's house," he says. "Somewhere neutral." I suggest the coffee place near my office. He agrees immediately. He's already there when I arrive, which is unusual. He's ordered a coffee and is turning the cup in his hands when I sit down. He looks like he hasn't slept well. Good. Some part of me thinks, and then I feel guilty about thinking it, and then I decide to let myself feel both things. "I don't know where to start," he says. "Wherever you want," I say. He starts in the middle, which is probably honest. He says he knew it had gone on too long. He says he told himself it was easier not to push back when Mom set the terms because she was the one dealing with everything after Dad died, and he was 19 and didn't know how to be an adult in a house full of grief, and somewhere along the way he just never course-corrected. He says this, and I believe most of it, and I also know that he's 25 now, and at some point not course-correcting becomes a choice. I tell him this. Gently, but I tell him. He nods like it lands the way it's supposed to. "I sent you that memo on purpose," he says, and I go still, not consciously, but when I was trying to figure out how to undo sending it, I realized I didn't actually want to. I just didn't have the guts to say it to you directly. I look at my brother, 25 years old, turning his coffee cup, and I think about him at 19, lost, and I think about myself at 22, deciding to hold the family together because someone had to. We were both handed a role. The difference is that his role cost him nothing and mine cost me nearly a decade. I need time. I tell him. I don't know yet what this looks like, but I'm not closing it permanently. He nods again. He pays for both our coffees, which is the first time in my adult memory that he's paid for anything. It's not absolution, but it's something. My mother and I don't speak for 2 months. When she finally reaches me, it's through a handwritten card, which I didn't expect. The card is short. She says she's been thinking. She says some of what I said was hard to hear, and some of it she's still sitting with. She doesn't apologize directly, but she doesn't defend herself either, which from her is a significant departure. She closes by saying she misses me. I put the card on my kitchen windowsill where I can see it while I make coffee in the mornings. I'm not ready to respond yet, but I'm not throwing it away. My aunt. I haven't heard from it all, which tells me something true about what that relationship was. 8 months after the dinner, I booked the New Orleans trip. 5 nights, a hotel in the French Quarter, a cooking class, a ghost tour I've been reading about since I was in college. I sit on my couch with my laptop and I book all of it in one sitting, and when I close the laptop, I cry a little. Not from sadness, but from the specific relief of wanting something small, and finally just doing it without calculating what it costs someone else. My emergency fund, which has been growing uninterrupted for 8 months, crosses $15,000 on a Tuesday while I'm making pasta. I take a screenshot of the balance. I don't send it to anyone. I just look at it. At work, I've taken on a project that my supervisor described as a long shot for someone at my level. I said yes without hesitating, which I don't think I would have done before, when my mental energy was always partially elsewhere, always partially calculating and managing and bracing. The project is going well. My supervisor mentioned my name to the director last week in a context that felt significant. I think about the version of myself who spent 6 years in this apartment doing everything right and somehow still always running just slightly short. That version of me thought the shortness was the cost of loving her family. It was actually the cost of being used by them, which is a different thing, and the difference matters. I still love my family. I've learned that love and exploitation can coexist in the same house for a very long time, especially when one person is willing to carry both without naming them. I'm done carrying both. On a Sunday in November, I'm sitting on my couch with the windows cracked and the first cold air of the season coming through, and I'm reading a book I bought months ago and keep almost finishing, and my phone buzzes and I look at it and set it back down and go back to reading. It's not that I don't care. It's that I've finally stopped organizing my whole life around caring in the specific way they needed me to. My brother texts me later that same evening. Just a link to a podcast episode about something we talked about at the coffee shop. No message, just the link. I click it. I listen to about 10 minutes while I'm washing dishes. Later, I text back a single word, good. He responds with a thumbs up. It's not much, but it's honest. And it's ours, and right now that's enough. Somewhere across the city in the house I helped pay for, they are figuring out how to live without what I provided. I think about this sometimes, not with satisfaction and not with guilt, but with a kind of clear-eyed acceptance. They will land somewhere. People do. And they will do it without me subsidizing the landing, which means for the first time, they'll actually have to. I turn off the light in the kitchen. I go back to my book. My apartment is quiet and entirely mine, and I am, for the first time in a very long time, enough. I've thought a lot about what it actually takes to keep giving to people who've stopped seeing you. It's not stupidity. I want to be clear about that, because for a long time I was afraid that's what it was. What it actually takes is a specific kind of hope, the hope that if you hold on long enough, if you give enough, if you make yourself indispensable enough, the people you love will eventually show up the way you need them to. That hope isn't weakness, but when it goes unexamined for 6 years, it becomes the most expensive thing you own. I spent $91,000 on that hope. I also spent my 20s. I spent the trips I didn't take, the dental work I kept pushing off, the evenings I sat in the studio apartment eating cold noodles because I had already calculated what I had left and decided someone else's need outweighed my own comfort. Every single one of those decisions made sense to me at the time. That's the part that took me the longest to sit with. Not that I was deceived, but that I participated in deceiving myself. I needed to believe we were a family that pulled together because the alternative, that I was the only one pulling, was something I wasn't ready to face. What changed wasn't the money. It was that 23-second voice memo, not because it told me something I couldn't have known, but because it made it impossible to unknow. And once you can't unknow something, you have a choice. You can find a way to reframe it, explain it away, fold it into the story you've already been telling yourself. Or you can sit very still in your apartment at midnight and let it mean what it means. I chose the second thing. It wasn't brave. It was just the only honest option left. Here's what I've come to understand about how actions compound over time, not in any mystical sense, but in the plainest practical one. What you tolerate, you teach. Every time I sent money without asking questions, every time I accepted an explanation I knew didn't add up, every time I let my mother's voice on the phone override what I already knew to be true, I was teaching them that this was how it worked. I wasn't a victim of something that happened to me. I was a participant in a system I helped build. Recognizing that wasn't self-blame, it was self-knowledge, and self-knowledge is the only place any real change can actually start. My brother sitting across from me at that coffee shop, turning his cup in his hands, saying he sent that memo on purpose but without the courage to mean it consciously. I believe him. I think he was drowning in the same system from a different position, one that cost him almost nothing financially but cost him something else. The ability to be honest. The habit of being accountable, those aren't small things to lose at 25. I don't know yet what we'll be to each other, but I know that the version of our relationship built on what I was willing to absorb is gone, and whatever comes next will have to be built on something more honest, or it won't get built at all. The last thing I'll say is this: there is a version of strength that looks like endurance, staying, absorbing, continuing to give past the point where giving makes sense. I practiced that version for 6 years and I was very good at it. But there is another kind of strength that is quieter and harder and more honest, and it looks like sitting down with a spreadsheet at midnight and letting the numbers tell you the truth. It looks like walking out of a dinner without raising your voice. It looks like booking a trip to New Orleans on a Tuesday afternoon because you finally have enough left over to want something for yourself. That's the version I'm learning now. I'm not finished learning it, but I'm not unlearning it either.